Well, this next story has a twist on par with something that we have seen out of a movie.
Right. So this is it's a fraud case, but it involves a man in his 70s who was sentenced to 3.5 years in prison for fraud and insurance fraud because he pretended he was paralyzed and used a wheelchair for
How long?
25 years.
25 years?
25 years. That's
a long, ongoing...
a quarter of a century.
Yeah.
So this goes all the way back to 1997.
Okay.
When he was a construction worker, fell from a construction site, and he was actually medically announced paralyzed from waist down.
Okay, initially.
Right. However, over time, his condition actually improved, which would be good news.
Yes.
To the point where he actually could walk without a cane assistance. However, for the last 25 years, he pretended that his paralysis was ongoing, persisted to get insurance money.
Ooh.
How much? He received 1.84 billion won in various compensations and insurance payments.
Okay.
Which, by the way, is 1.2 billion won more than what he qualified for. So it wasn't even, let's just say he was paralyzed.
Okay.
It wasn't even what he would have received had he been paralyzed. It was
Like above and beyond.
way more than what he should have. So how? Out of many, many things. In the process, he borrowed a friend's nursing aid license. Borrowed. They were in
Yes.
cahoots. Filed paperwork as if this person were actually taking care of him and received 159 million won in caregivers compensations alone. So this was a very detailed, prolonged scheme. So the
Yes.
court said, although he still does have mobility problems, it's not
Right.
like his running marathons. His actions lasted over a long period, 2.5
Yes.
decades, involved a large amount of money, and they had negative impacts on the soundness of workers' comp system. I mean, this guy took 1.8 billion won. That money could have gone to someone who's actually in need, who's actually
really
injured.
needed it.
Right.
Oh, I'm still stuck on the 25
25 years.
That's a long time to keep something going. All right. Let's move on. This European city is asking tourists to stop taking this item as a souvenir.
Rocks.
Where are
all
we, first of
this
all?
is a CNN report.
Yes.
Belgium's picturesque historic town, Bruges, in Korean is Brugge. They've issued a request that tourists stop stealing cobblestones because these are rocks that are a part of the road. From the UNESCO recognized
Why
medieval
would you
streets.
take a rock from there?
Because it's
Seriously?
a pretty rock and it's part of history, people think. So a local politician says that an estimated 50 to 70 cobblestones disappear every month. That's
Every
average.
month?
I mean, you might think, I'm
Yes.
literally picking up a piece of rock off the street. But it's actually a part of their roads, which
Right.
is infrastructure. And it actually costs 200 euros. That's what, with the currency right now, it feels like 100만 원, but roughly 30만 원
Yes.
per square meter to replace them and fix the damage. So taxpayer money. And then also, if you've ever tried to walk
Yes.
on cobblestone streets with anything other than a pair of really good sneakers with rolly suitcases,
The wheels will break.
it's a tripping hazard. And if there are especially holes in there, city workers are constantly being dispatched to
Yes.
fix them. They're simply asking for respect. If you're stepping through centuries of history, the stones are also a part of the city's soul.
That's true, though. And this is part of the whole larger issue of over-tourism.
Especially in Europe, not only Bruges, but also Venice, Barcelona, they've been suffering from over-tourism.
Yes.
In 2019, Bruges voted to reduce the number of cruise ships that would be allowed to dock in a nearby neighboring port and tourism promotions, because I guess a lot of Parisian and also visitors to Paris come here for day trips.
Yes.
So yeah, summer travel season is upon us. It is Memorial Day weekend, aka unofficial start of summer. Let's be respectful.
Okay, so for our next story, an elementary school student hit his teacher because of a test question. Say it's not so, Haley.
What world are we living in? But unfortunately, yes. So this is from Gyeonggi-do, Gyeonggi Province Office of Education. A third grader, just quite young at an elementary school in Uiwang, allegedly hit his teacher in the knee, hand, and ankle. So there were several punches thrown. This happened after they got their test back, a unit test or unit assessment.
Yes.
And apparently he saw that he got a question or some questions wrong on the math portion.
Okay.
He then raised his hand, said, "No, I got all of it right." And the outburst happened after this, presumably in the process of the teacher saying, "Oh no, you got such and such question wrong."
Okay.
So at least here's the thing. It seems that things are being handled the way they're supposed to after this happened.
Okay.
Shouldn't have happened in the first place,
Right.
but here we are. The Education Support Center with the Education Office, it immediately convened a Teachers' Rights Protection Committee, separated the student and the teacher.
Okay.
The teacher received special leave with counseling. The boy also submitted, or the parents made him write a letter of apology, and they submitted it together to the teacher. But the Korea Teachers and Education Workers Union urged proactive responses on the part of the education authorities, calling this an act of violence that shakes up the foundation of public education.
I mean, just violence, period. It's a
right.
no-no. In schools especially no.
And
You know,
even just the culture where a third grader, 9 years old, feels
It's
I don't know,
okay.
feels this violent urge because of a test question, that also it just speaks volumes.
And one of the buzzwords right now in international news is the Golden Dome, which President Donald Trump has floated. North Korea and China have recently spoken out about this. So let's find out, what is this Golden Dome that he's talking about and why it's getting such a kind of a response?
Right. It's a futuristic missile defense system,
Right.
which could potentially protect the U.S. against even ballistic and cruise missiles. So President Donald Trump first mentioned this right after his inauguration back in January.
Yes.
And last week, the administration actually took major steps, picked a design, apparently, for this so-called Golden Dome. So Trump says the system is a next-generation set of technologies across land, sea, and space, including, and this is what makes it next generation, space-based sensors and interceptors. And apparently capable of intercepting missiles launched from not only the other side of the world, but also from outer space. So the system, as you can probably glean from the name, inspired by the famous Iron Dome, which Israel uses, and they've been
Yes.
using it since 2011. However, the Golden Dome will be much larger and designed to combat stronger threats. And then, well, with anything military, and if it has the name Golden in it, what about the cost? It
Yes.
sounds expensive, doesn't it? It is going to be expensive. Just the initial first investment, $25 billion.
Wow.
And Trump says the total cost will be $175 billion. But the Congressional Budget Office has estimated that it will ultimately be spending $542 billion over 20 years. And that's only on the space-based parts of that system. Anyways, we're looking at many, many zeros.
Yes.
And then so that's the military aspect. And then it gets political, geopolitical. Trump also brought up the issue of Canada joining U.S. statehood as the 51st state. How would these two be tied? Well, he claims that Canadian officials were considering his proposal for Canada to contribute some $61 billion to benefit from the Golden Dome, but said, you wouldn't be paying anything if you joined us as a 51st state. Yeah.
Well, it has definitely incited reactions, right?
Right, because obviously that defense system is targeted at pretty much a handful of countries, which, U.S. adversaries, so namely Russia, China, and North Korea. So they have all condemned the Golden Dome as dangerous and being a threat to global stability. So we kind of remember not the film Star Wars, but the Star Wars during the Reagan, the 60s and 70s between the U.S. and Soviet Union, this arms race. They're basically saying that it would be a repeat if the U.S. were to take this step. Pyongyang's foreign ministry criticized this plan as one that could turn outer space into a potential nuclear war field, adding that the plan is Pyongyang tends to use colorful language,
Yes.
The height of self-righteousness and arrogance. Beijing also echoed it, saying that it is seriously concerned about the Golden Dome with strong offensive implications.
Well, we'll see if this actually comes to light. But thanks for covering all the news stories, of course. We'll check in with you in hour number 2. Thank you, Haley.
See you in a bit.